You are tuned in to What a Baltimore Online Radio. Please note that the views and opinions expressed are of the host and not of Lady J Media. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, my name is Lady J. Welcome to this is a special edition of What Up Baltimore. I'm on IG and I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube right now. So um, make sure that you share the video. Tonight we're going to be talking about grief and loss. While I am talking to you, I'm going to be sharing the video because I want to make sure that, excuse me, I want to make sure that the video gets out. But we're going to be talking about grief and loss because I don't know if it's me and because I'm getting older, I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden it just seems like so many people are passing away. And it's to the point that sometimes I don't oops, sorry. It just seems like so sorry guys, I'm sorry. It you know, let me get back. What was I just saying? Okay. So I was saying all of a sudden it just seems like everybody is passing away. And sometimes when I go, I hate going on social media because, it now it's almost like reading an obituary. When you go on social media, at least for me, as soon as I go on there, it's like somebody passed away. I said, I'm so tired of writing rest in peace, sleep in peace, all of that. I'm just tired of it. So tonight I'm going to talk about grief and loss, and we're going to talk about how to deal with it, how to cope, how does it make you feel when you're going through it, and um, just give you some tools to work with. Why is this not letting me share? I hate Facebook. Okay. I'm just going to give you some tools to help you to be able to deal with grief, because when we talk about grief, and again, guys, I'm just looking down because I'm actually sharing the video. But when we talk about grief, grief is not just um, someone passing away. Grief can be in many forms. For example, there are people right now who are going through divorce, they're going through separation, they're having financial issues right now, um, dealing with their children. And so there's a lot of things that can cause you to grieve. For example, and you guys know that I don't put anybody else's business out there, I just talk about me. But for example, I remember when I went through my divorce. I initiated the divorce. Yes, I wanted the divorce. I was ready. There was nothing in me that, wanted to stay. But once the divorce was over and it was finalized, and I remember walking out of the courtroom, the feeling that I had, oh my goodness, and the weight of heaviness that I had, like, I didn't realize at the time that I was grieving. So I'm saying all of that to say that grief doesn't necessarily always have to be. Let me turn IG on. I'm on Instagram too as well, guys talking. Um, Grief doesn't always have to be in the form of death, but there are things in life that you can lose that will cause you to have the same emotions, to have the same feelings, to not understand. And it's just like as if somebody had passed away. So this week alone, between this year alone, I'm sorry, this year alone, I've probably lost about 20 people. And this is what, September? And sometimes I say to myself, I'm wondering how I'm grieving. How am I dealing with it? Because a lot of times we feel like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'll call people and I'll say, you okay? Because I know that they've suffered a loss. Are you okay? Is everything good? Yeah, I'm great. I'm good. I'm fine. Well, if you don't deal with your grief, if you don't deal with the hurt, the pain, um, the anger, because it makes you angry too. When you don't understand, if somebody passes away, you don't always understand. So, hey, Steve. So the thing is, I want to help you to really be able to think about it and process it a little better. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So if you could do me a favor so I can look up and start talking, if you could do me a favor and just make sure that you pass the video along. If you know somebody who is grieving, if you know somebody who, and like I said, it does not have to be um, grieving in the form of a death. You know, your marriage may have broken up. You may have found out that your spouse was doing something they weren't supposed to do. It's causing you a lot of grief. It's causing you a lot of sadness. And so those are the things that we're going to talk about tonight, because I don't just want to focus on death. I don't want to focus on death, but I want to talk about it. So let's talk about the different stages of grief and how it makes you feel. And I'm pretty sure as I start talking about it, you'll actually, understand what I'm saying. Um, Again, please make sure you share the video. If you know anybody who suffered a recent loss, it could be anything that they've lost, a job, losing your job. There are a lot of people that are losing their job during the pandemic, and they're going through a grieving process. Okay, so please make sure you share the video. So the first thing that happens in your grieving process and your loss, this grief and loss thing, because they go hand in hand. One of the things that happens is that um, a lot of people are shocked. Okay, when you hear, even if you know that the person they have a terminal illness, and you've been told by family or maybe somebody in your family, but you've been told by family or friends that this person doesn't have long to live, you're still shocked when it happened. You know what I mean? And you're even more shocked when a death or a loss or some kind of hurt or pain has come into your life. You're even more shocked because you weren't expecting it. It just literally came out of nowhere. So one of the stages that we deal with when we're going through this process is shock. We're just really shocked. It shakes us. And a lot of times it's so it can be so hard that it just disables everything within you. You can't think straight. You might start crying. You might start screaming. It just dismantles everything within your body. And that's normal. And I'm telling you these things because I want you to understand that as you go through it, or if you're going through it, it's normal. It's a normal process. So don't beat yourself up. I meet people who say, Lady J, I'm angry because my mom passed away. It's okay to be angry. It's okay. And we're going to talk about that. So again, you start feeling shocked. You go into denial. I remember when my grandmother passed away. I had just seen her, I'm talking about hours. And I went home to get something, and I was on my way back to see her, and I got a call on the way that she passed away. And I'm like, I just saw her. The shock that hit me as I was driving, and then me going into denial, like, no, they probably made a mistake. When I get there, she's good, she'll be okay. It's like you start playing these mental mind games because you don't want that news to be correct. You don't want to even think that could possibly be true. And that's normal. Okay. I just want to say to you, it's a normal reaction. The other thing that we feel when we're going through grief and loss is an immense amount of pain. We feel pain because who wants to lose their loved one? Who wants to lose their job? Who wants to be in a marriage that's not working, and all of a sudden it just breaks up. It just disintegrates. Who wants to be in these situations? Who wants to be in a situation where you're losing everything? No matter how hard you're trying to make things happen, you're losing everything. Who wants to be in that situation? And so as you're going through the process, you're going through the shock, the denial. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I lost my job. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this check did not come through. That happened to me recently. That happened to me recently, and I had to really work on myself because I could not believe that my check was not deposited into my account and I needed my money. We go through all different things, but the pain of loss is real, and it can be so severe that it will almost cripple you, and you get stuck right where you are. You could be at work, working on your computer, putting some stuff in the computer, and all of a sudden you get that bad news that somebody passed away. And right away you get stuck. It's like you can't move forward. You can't move. You can't move. And that's a normal reaction. So don't feel bad about it. All that I'm talking about tonight are all the things that you will feel. You will feel as you're going through the grieving process, as you go through losing um, things in life or losing people in life. Sometimes, I've lost friends, and a couple of them, I went through the grieving process because we were friends, and I didn't understand why it had to get to where it had gotten to, and I had to go through the grieving process. They were very much alive, but it still hurt, and I was feeling the pain of the loss of not having that particular person in my life anymore. And so those are real feelings. Sometimes we even feel guilty. You may feel guilty because maybe this person passed away and something was telling you to call them, or something was telling you to reach out and you didn't, or something was telling you to go and visit and you didn't. So you start feeling um, a bit of grief and I'm sorry, not grief, guilt. You start feeling guilty for something that you didn't do. And I just want to tell you, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. We all have done that. We all go through the shoulda, woulda, coulda, but you gotta keep going. You can't get stuck. Hey Jackie, hi Keith, how are you? You can't get stuck. You got to keep on moving, and you have to understand that if you had a relationship with that person, they understood. They know what you're doing, and whether or not you could make it to be with them. They do understand that. So don't beat yourself up with guilt. The other thing I talked about is that you start feeling angry. You really do start feeling angry about what has happened, the effect of the loss, the effect of it. Sometimes it just makes you feel angry. I remember feeling angry earlier this year because I had just seen my cousin, and we were extremely close, like sisters. And I remember coming up the steps on my porch and getting a call from my mother and saying that she passed away. I had bags in my hand and I just dropped the bags. Just let them go on the porch because I was so shocked. And at the same time, as the day went on, I was getting angry. And I'm like, why? Like, what did she do? Why is she not here? Why is she not here? And so you start feeling angry. And that's a normal reaction. All of what I'm talking about is normal. Another wave that might come through, and I pray that it doesn't, is the wave of depression. People will start feeling depressed. I've gone through that, where you can't shake it. You can't shake it. Depression comes over you. Depression, let's talk about depression for a few seconds. You may not feel like eating. You may not feel like getting out of the bed. You may not feel like talking to anyone. You may just feel like being by yourself. You may be crying all day. These are all signs of you being depressed, wanting to be alone, not being engaged with anyone. These are all signs of depression, and those are normal too. Now, the thing I do want to say, as I'm saying these things are normal, is if this continues to go on, let's say the person passed away in 2019. Now, if in 2020 and 2021 you're still having all of these signs and symptoms, you need to go and seek help. And I will say this, even as you're going through your stages of grief and loss. It's good to go and get help. It's good to go and talk to somebody to help you move through it a lot smoother and a lot quickly. And as you continue to go on through this grieving process, through the loss of a loved one, your job, or whatever the loss may be, life has a way of continuing to move. You know, I think it was my grandmother who says that time doesn't stop for anyone. Life keeps going on even when you stop. Life has a way of continuing to go on, and you'll slowly find yourself getting back into the groove, getting back into the groove, and beginning to work through the process. Now, again, like I said, the one thing that can really help you to work through this process is you can go to grief counselors. They actually have sessions that you can go to as well. You can go and get the help, and they'll give you the tools that you need to be able to get through the process. That's a way of helping you to get through it even quicker. And a lot of times you meet other people who are going through the same thing that you're going through, and once you're able to sit there and talk, then you're able to really connect with what they're saying. So again, the grieving process is no joke. It's no joke. And it's real, but we can and you can get through it. And as I said, life has a way of going on. Life has a way of moving along. And as you begin your healing, as you're going through this process, you'll start working through it, and you will begin to accept the fact that this person is gone, or I lost my job, or my relationship broke up, or this friendship didn't work. Hey Ray, you'll begin to accept the things that are happening, and you'll be able to move on and still live a healthy and happy life. And I'm just sharing that with you because I want you to understand that whatever you are feeling at this point in time, or what you felt before, it's okay. It's a part of the process. And one of the things you have to remember as you're going through the grieving process and through losing things or through losing people is that it won't last forever. Like I said, if you get in a situation where this thing continues to linger, I know people, to be honest with you, I know a few people. I know one lady who lost her husband. This has to be like 25 years now. And if you had a conversation with her, you would think that he just passed away yesterday or today. She is still grieving, and she has allowed herself to go into this depressive state where she's so comfortable and she's so happy being in this state that whoever talks to her, she doesn't want to move out of it. She's comfortable being there, always talking about her husband as if this thing happened yesterday. And that's what I'm saying. If you are in a situation where it continues to linger and linger, please go and get help. It's important for you to go and get some help because this thing will filter down into something else, more and more things. And you don't want depression, anxiety, stress. You don't want these things to attach itself to any other thing that's going on in your life. We know that we're going to grieve. We know that we're going to cry. We know that we're going to go through the pain and the anxiety, but we don't want to stay there. Okay? We want to be able to move, to continue to move forward. And understand this. This is on a positive note. Sometimes we think we can't handle stuff. And I'm just here to tell you that you can handle more than you think. Even when you feel like, this is too much, I can't handle it. There's something inside of all of us. If we really dig deep, there's something inside of all of us that will help us to push through our pain, to push through our grief, and we will be able to deal with it. We'll be able to handle it. Is it a process? Yes. Is it going to be over like the next day? Probably not. It may take a few days. It may take a month, And again, the best way to deal with this, especially if it's something that's really, really impacted your life, like a loss, like a major loss, a death, a major death, in the family, or a major loss of your job, or when I was talking about when I went to court after I got my divorce in 2013, and I didn't understand why I was crying until someone pointed out, you're grieving the loss of what you thought would be. There were certain things that you had in your mind that were going to happen, that were going to take place, and it didn't. So you're grieving that loss. And so remember that you can handle it. But there are things that you need to do to help yourself to work through this grieving process. And one of the things that I would suggest is that if you're going through the grieving process and you feel like because you know yourself better than anybody, and if you know that you really are not doing as well as you would like to do, please reach out and get help. There are so many places, grief counselors and agencies and support groups that you can connect with. So please make sure that you reach out. Um, and then the other thing I want you to do is be gentle with yourself. Okay, be kind to yourself, because let me tell you something. When you are grieving, when you're going through losses, when you're going through pain, through stress and anxiety, it hurts. It really hurts. And the one thing is that you really sometimes sometimes you just feel like you want to just find a hole and crawl in it, because it is really, really painful. But here's the thing, everybody. Here's the thing that's so, so important. You can get through it. And if you feel like you need to pull back, if you feel like you need to take a break, if you feel like um, you need to kind of step back from some of the responsibilities. Maybe you have responsibilities at work, at your child's school, at church, or something like that. If you feel like you need to pull back and take care of you. Make sure that you're good so you can step back up and do the things that you were doing. That's really important. And then don't be afraid to um, let it come through. There's going to be songs that might remind you of the person or the situation. There are going to be sometimes people that you might meet. I remember I was at I was covering a town hall meeting a few months ago, and there I was behind the camera, and I'm zooming in and I'm recording everything that's going on. And all of a sudden, as I'm going around, I see this lady standing against the wall who looks like my cousin that passed away. And I had to quickly get myself together because I got stuck for a second because I'm like, oh my goodness, she looks like my cousin. And I remember getting stuck for just a second. And even when the event was over, I had to just walk past her. I had to just walk past and get a closer look because she reminded me so much of my cousin. So there are always going to be things that will come up that will be reminders of what you've gone through and what you've experienced. But don't let that stop you in your tracks. Don't let it make you get stuck. Sometimes um, when those things happen, think of the good things. Like when I saw this lady, instead of me getting sad, I started thinking about the really great times that we had together, the great conversations, the secrets we had between each other. I started thinking about those things, and I just smiled, and I was able to continue on with my evening. And so a lot of times, when those things come up, we gotta always begin to think positive. How can you change that negative into a positive? How can I think about it in a way that makes me happy, that makes me smile, that makes me feel like, what, it's okay? How can I do that? Um, and the other thing is I've been saying all throughout this live is that your feelings and what you're going through, they are normal. They're normal. And I always tell people, don't ever let someone tell you how long you should grieve. You know, that's you. And then depending on who the person was, you may grieve a little bit longer, you know? If my parents were, my mom or dad, God forbid, or my siblings were to pass away, you can't tell me how long to grieve. You can't tell me that, you know what, it's been 2 months. You need to stop grieving. Tears may fall every now and then, but as I've been saying from the beginning of this video, is that even though tears may fall, even though you may feel the pain of the loss, and even though you may be grieving the loss, do the work that you need to make sure that even when those tears fall, they fall and you can keep moving, because as I said, you're always going to have constant reminders. I still have reminders of my grandmother. She died in 1996. And there are always things that remind me, or there may be music that's playing, or I might be around my mom and my mom might say something. And when my grandmother first passed away, when those things would happen, oh, I was boohooing, hoo, I was crying, I was sad. But I had to work through it. Remember, I just gave you the steps on how to work through it. And now, when I hear certain songs, or now when I hear, oh, you are welcome, Emerald Flame Catering. Um, Now, when I hear songs, or now when I hear um, my family or my mother talking about my grandmother, I think of the good things. I think of all of the great things of the great conversations that we had, and places that we went to, and I just turn those, what could be negative feelings and emotions, I just turn them into a positive. And I'm like, she was a great lady. And I'm sorry she's not here, but she left so much of herself in me, that I can share with others. So try to look at the positive side of it. And again, your feelings are normal. So as you're going through the grieving process, as you're going through the loss, allow yourself to feel whatever it wants to feel. If it wants to cry, if it wants to stomp, kick, scream, go throw something, allow yourself to feel that, you know, because you're working through it. It's a process and you're working through it. And after a while, as I said, as you begin to work through it, things have a way of coming back around and pulling you right back into the universe, where you're able to get back to the things that you were used to doing. Remember that even as you go through the process of grief and loss, that you're not alone. You're not alone. There are several support groups. I live in Maryland, but you can always look for, hi Joyce, you can always look for the different support groups out there. I'm sorry, Van. Hi, Van. You can always look for the different support groups that are out there, who may be able to help you. There are support groups. There are um, counselors, grief counselors. There are psychologists, psychiatrists. There's all different types of therapy to help you to deal with grief, because this grieving process is so real. And as I said, when I started this whole thing, for me, I've lost probably about 20 people this year. Not just random people, but people that I know. And before I even did this live, I was thinking, okay, how many times have I actually cried? Because I don't remember. My cousin passed away this earlier this year, and that was the one time when I just broke. It was like a waterfall, because I couldn't believe she passed away. And the pain, I still feel that pain. I still feel that loss of her not being here, and me not being able to pick up the phone and talk to her, and laugh, and like I said, tell our secrets to each other. I miss that. And so I feel like in some ways, some days I'm still dealing with it. And this happened earlier this year, and this is September. So it's a process that you have to work through. The one thing that it has not done in my life is that it has not stopped me from doing anything, and from doing my normal activities. But there are so many people who are grieving now. A friend of mine committed suicide in June of this year, going through the grief of his mom passing away, and he wasn't really there like he should have been. And remember earlier I talked about guilt. Sometimes we walk around with these guilty feelings, and he was walking around with a lot of guilt, a lot of pain. We used to talk about it all the time. The one thing he wanted to do was tell his mother that he was sorry and his mom had passed away. And, you know, me trying to call him, not being able to get him on the phone, and then finding out later that he committed suicide. This was in June of this year. And so people have so many um, different ways that they deal with this this grieving process and the loss. But if you don't deal with it in the right way, there are some negative things that can happen. Okay, so let's touch on those for just a few minutes, because I've been giving you, all of the ways to cope and to deal with it. But let's be honest, there are a lot of people out here who are grieving. They don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to see anybody, and they end up committing suicide. There are people who go so deep into themselves that they do the most heinous acts that you can't even imagine. And I was talking about this the other night on the show, where there's a mother here, that not a mother, auntie here, who was driving around with her niece and nephew in her car. See, people go through all types of things in life, and I was sharing this with my dad last night. That whenever we say grief, whenever we say loss, we're thinking about somebody died, somebody passed away. And I was saying to him last night, no, I live in the city. There are people who are grieving the loss of their job. Their jobs have been taken away. Their money has been taken away. People are losing their homes. People are losing hope. And people are going into a grieving process, and they don't even know that they're grieving. They don't even know that they're at the point of no return. And they start doing some things because this grief is so embedded in them, and they're not talking to anyone. They're not sharing what they're going through. And the pain can be so great that they do things that they probably thought they would never ever do. And this is what grief does when you don't get help, when you don't say, I'm not okay. When you just go and shut that door and you don't let anybody in, and you just try to rock it out by yourself. A lot of people do that, and it's not going to work, because depression is real, and depression will slide right in there with that grief. And let me tell you, those two are deadly. And I don't mean deadly in the sense like you die, but it's deadly, because you just become a ticking time bomb, just waiting for, we're waiting for you to explode. People will turn to doing things that they thought they would never do, drugs, um, back to their violent activities, hanging out with people that they didn't used to hang out with. People will start doing so many things, because when you can't handle grief, and when this brain gets so overwhelmed, you know, we're bound to do anything. And none of us, let me just say this, none of us are exempt. None of us. Because, like I said, depending on what the loss is, depending on who the person is that we're losing, it can be so great that it just causes us to change from being who we are into somebody that we don't even recognize. Grief and loss are very, very real. And I pray for my family, because in my family, my cousins have had three losses pretty much back to back. And I find myself, going back to my notes and what I said to you, like, Lord, why? Why? You know, what did this person do that they needed to be put to sleep? And me personally, I'm gonna tell y'all, this is on the side. If I had the power, and thank God I don't, if I had the power to lay some people to rest, they would be gone. And it would be a whole slew of them. I would just boom, 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 lay you to rest and leave the other people alone because the the whole, and I'm going to say the whole, it's almost like a whole, it's like a part of you, like a limb is missing. And when I think about people that I've lost this year, it's just like you lost a part of yourself. How do you get through it? How do you cope? How do you handle it? And the only way to deal with it, the only way to get through it, the only way to handle it is that even though we're going through the loss, even though we're grieving the loss of the person or whatever the activity was that happened in our life, you got to pull back for just a minute and you got to make sure that you start working on you because that person is gone or that job is gone or that marriage has dissolved or whatever it is that's happened. You got to make sure you start working on you real quick and get the help that you need so you're able to go through this process. You're still going to hurt, you're still going to cry, you're still going to grieve, but at least if you start working on you, I always tell people there's nothing wrong with going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, I go. There's nothing wrong with going to therapy, getting the help that you need because this will help you to get through that process a little bit quicker and you're able to talk it through. And they've been trained to help you to deal with grief, to deal with loss. They've been trained to help you to cope. Please, whatever you do, don't just sit there and decide, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just going to work through this myself, which I hear so many people saying, oh, I ain't going to therapy. I'm just going to work through this by myself. That doesn't always happen. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you need to go out and seek that professional help. And Van says people think just grieving dead people can also grieving relationships, marriage, losing out on things you used to do, and people give up. Yes, so she's just naming the different things that you can grieve. And I said that earlier. It's not just death, you know, grieving relationships, job loss, you lost your home, you know, finances are not what they used to be. You're grieving. It's a pain that has come upon you. And so we have to learn how to deal with it. So I gave out some tools earlier on how to deal with grief, how to deal with loss. And remember that you are never alone in this. No matter how bad you feel, and you might think that nobody understands, there are people who definitely understand what you're going through. There are definitely people who may be where you are right now. They know exactly how you feel. But don't beat yourself up. That's if I could just leave one thing with you, don't beat yourself up. Well, two things. Don't beat yourself up and don't sit there. If you feel like something is not quite right inside of you and you haven't gotten back to, you know, the person that you know you are, person, if you're a person that likes to laugh and joke and you don't laugh and joke anymore, you don't want to deal with people. Listen, if you're not feeling quite the way that you know that you should be, the greatest gift you can give to yourself is to go and get help. Seek help. Um, Let them know, let a therapist, or matter of fact, your primary care physician will be the one that you can talk to, and then they can refer you out to someone in behavioral health who can help you. Nobody has to know that you're doing it. Nobody has to know that um, you're seeking counseling. This is for you. This is for your mental well-being. So again, I hope that you all um, have learned something, and I really do hope that whatever you are grieving, whatever you are going through, that you take the necessary steps to work through it, that you understand that all of what you're going through is normal. But if it lingers around too long, you need to get help. And by the way, just get help anyway. Just go get the help you need anyway. And make sure that you take care of you because if you don't take care of you and if you don't get the help that you need, then you're not going to be any good for anyone else. Okay? My name is Dr. J. Thank you so much for joining me tonight We have another show coming up at 10 o'clock, and you're going to enjoy that one. So thank you. Have a great evening. Make sure you share this video with somebody and let them know that if they're going through any type of grief, any type of loss, as a matter of fact, they can call me if they want to. My number is 443-297-4753. You can feel free to call me. I will talk to you. I will help you get to where you need to be, or whoever you need to talk to. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Have a great night. Be blessed. And I'm praying for all of those who are dealing with loss right now. My prayers, my thoughts, and my prayers are with you. May God continue to bless you and be with you. And just know that you're not alone. Everybody take care. Have a great night.